All right. You know you are in for a treat when you hear that tune. It's time for another episode of the Rec Poker Podcast. This is our weekly chats edition, but we also have a weekly forums edition that's all about strategy. I'm Rob Gardner. I am your guest host this week. You can find me on all social media at Rob Gardner Live. And I have the best freaking job in the world because this week I get to step into the massive shoes of the one and only legendary Jim Reed, who's at the WSOP this week, chasing and crushing other people's dreams. We're proud to be brought to you by the official sponsors of the Rec Poker Podcast, Running Aces Casino. You can find out more about them over at runningaces.com. I cannot wait for August, the first weekend in August. We're going to be having our official Rec Poker weekend there. We're going to be over at Running Aces, having lots of fun competitions, playing in a bunch of tournaments. I got to go out there last January. It was an absolute blast. Staff was great. The people were great. Pretty much everything about the experience was great, except for one, Taylor Moss. As you guys know, Rec Poker is largely a volunteer organization, so we're very appreciative and dependent on our premium members and all of our sponsors. For just $22 a month, you can become a premium member and get access to all of our training and study materials. But you can sign up for a free account just using an email address and a smile. And as you know, we love supporting food banks here. Make any size donation and send us a receipt, and we'll give you a free month of premium membership over at recpoker.poker. I was going to say recpoker.com. John, get that for us next week, if you don't mind. If you could just wrangle that domain address up for us. Now, I'm only one man. It does take a crew to make all the magic happen here. We call our leadership team the Wrecking Crew. You can learn more about the Wrecking Crew by heading over to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up because they are joining us tonight. We have one John Somsky, Joe Kulis, Rob Washam, and Lorianne Persinger joining us today. And tonight is not just a special night, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is history. Because for the first time in, I don't know, how many episodes are we on now? 697, 714? Do you guys just make up a number? Do we even keep track of it? I don't know. 767 episodes of the Rec Poker Podcast. And not once have we interviewed a WSOP bracelet winner who is one of our very own members here. And I get the privilege to get that interview kicked off because Jim just had to go play the main event for some silly reason. So I want to introduce to you guys, if you don't know, Craig Savage, who is joining us, who just created this amazing accomplishment, and the guy that helped him really help his career come off. Special guest for us tonight, Carlos Welch. Gentlemen, great to have you both on tonight. We'll start with Carlos. How are things out there in Vegas right now? Is the only one other than Lorianne that's out there at the moment?
It's hot. But the games are good as usual. And just the summer's more than halfway over now. I think we're coming up on today's day 2D of the main event, but somehow there's still probably like 15 events left. So great times.
What is it like, Carlos, the first 3 weeks after the WSOP is over? I've never been out there end of July, beginning of August. Is it like a ghost town? Does it feel weird? Are you dreading going to the casino? What's it like after?
Well, I don't go to the casino usually unless there's some World Series of poker stuff going on. But the times, well, that's the case now. At one point, I lived at the casino. So when everyone left town, it was just, I had my living room back the way it was before everybody came. So this was back when it was at the Rio. It's a chill place, man. It's a chill place. I love it here weather-wise outside of the summer. That so many players never get to experience that side of Vegas. But it's great weather-wise 9 months out of the year.
Now, Craig, you, because you're crazy and a little bit psycho, if I'm being honest, decided to not only win a bracelet, but you immediately leave the WSOP and
got the hell out of town.
Touch the sky, basically. You were up 10, 50,000 feet. What was that like?
I bolted from Vegas and headed right to Denver and drove out to the Front Range and stayed in Breckenridge for a week and hiked every day. And yeah, my wife and I did our first 14er. And it was no joke, man. The air is thin when you get above 10,000. It gets thinner at 12,000. And we did a couple of acclimation hikes and we got to about 12,000. And we started thinking, man, another 2,000 to go up. And it was legit. About 3.5 miles in, and it's just straight up. About 2.5 miles of that is above the tree line. And but it was one of those things where you're walking up thinking, why am I doing this? And you're walking down thinking every step of this is torture. And then you think, I'm never doing this again. And then about a day later, you're thinking, I could do another one of these. It's pretty fun. But it was amazing. It was amazing.
So you wear a bracelet.
It's a great way to get Vegas off of you. I mean, Carlos, Lorianne, they live there, but like when you're out there for 2 weeks and it's just so intense and it's so, you're crowded and you're playing every day and you're just so, your brain is in this space, and I just can't go home after that. Like I can't go back to my real life. I need something in between as a break. And for me, it's going up in the mountains and hiking somewhere. It's just a great way to kind of get away from that and then come back to the real world.
Mm. So basically you win a bracelet, climbed to 14,000 feet. You took it easy this year. And then next year, the real challenges kick in. I want to hear a little bit about how you and Carlos met. I'll start with you, Craig. Like how did you guys meet? How did you guys get connected back in the day?
So I remember hearing Carlos's first appearance on the Thinking Poker podcast. And I was intrigued by him and his story, and the fact that he was a teacher and he was from Atlanta, and I was teaching in Atlanta prior to moving out to Dallas. And I was like, man, here's somebody else who understands being in the classroom, who has a love of poker, who is frugal, very frugal. When you're a teacher, you learn very quickly to be frugal if you're going to, support a family on a teacher's income. And I was curious about his story. I followed it. And I happened to be in Vegas playing at an event at Planet Hollywood. And I saw Carlos. I followed him on Twitter, and he was tweeting that he was playing the event at Planet Hollywood. So I sent a message saying, hey, I'm a fellow teacher, have lived in Atlanta, followed your story. I'm in the same tournament. Would you mind meeting me on the break just to say hello? And he said, of course. The break happened, and we're both walking away from our tables because we both just busted the tournament. And we found like an outer table, and we just sat, that wasn't being used. We just sat down and just got to know each other. And, he was so generous with his time because he didn't have to sit there and meet with me at all. He just busted a tournament. He might want to get out of there. I think we talked for over an hour. And then we just kept in contact after that. And that was 2013, I believe.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lori, and I know you had a question for Carlos.
I do. Hey, Carlos. I got a question.
Hey,
hey, now we're all friends here. There's no secrets in between any of us. So you can be honest here and tell us, what did you think of Craig's game when you guys first met?
When we first met, well, like Craig said, it was 2013. And so it's been a while. And I don't know if I knew much about his game when we first met in 2013, but I did start coaching him in 2017, and I do have records, so I can answer that question with a little bit of specificity as soon as I get that pulled up. But generally, I would say that Craig was like most of us, and he'll be the first to admit that there's like this gap between what we study and learn and what we do when we're executing. Mm-hmm. And that was like, when I think about Craig's game, I think about coaching sessions we've had where he expressed to me like that gap. And we talked recently, and he said that, it's because he didn't get a chance to play so much. And so you do all this studying and not as much playing. And by the time you get around to playing, you can't remember half of the things, or there's so many things that, they kind of like are jumbled in your head. So when he told me about the prop bet that kind of like forced him to do more playing, it makes sense that he had the success that he's had, because now you don't like that gap between the study and the play. Study Craig and play Craig is like closer when there's more playing reps involved.
Gotcha.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Craig, was there any point in your coaching with Carlos that there was like this aha moment or a turning point, if you will, that you kind of felt like took you to the next level and kind of propelled you forward? And if so, would you share kind of what that was?
I don't know if I can point to a particular moment. It was always like this gradual. The way that Carlos approaches with his students is like he really takes the time to kind of figure out where you're at, and then he gives you like a pathway to follow, and then it's incremental. So you're getting these little steps. But I do think there was a time when I started to think about the game a little bit more deeply. Consider, I don't know. It's a hard thing. It's been a long time. And it's not like we did like an intense, like 6 months or whatever. It would be like we would check in every 6 months. We would kind of connect and do a couple sessions, and then some time would pass and we would do it again. And sometimes because there's so much time, we would have to go back a little bit. It's like you take 3 steps back to get 4 steps forward, or 2 steps back and 3 steps forward. So it's always this gradual thing. But I think what happened was it got to the point where I felt comfortable enough to go back to someone else who was where I started and pull them forward. And that's when the things that he was doing with me became more clear, because I was now having to teach them to someone else. And as Carlos can tell you, being a teacher, the best way to learn is to teach. When one person teaches, 2 people learn is one of the sayings I really like about teaching. And so when I started considering me teaching other people and trying to bring them forward in their game, the things that he had been teaching me were now more clear because I was having to convey them. And then I thought, man, I can't be teaching people how to play if I don't really, really know what I'm talking about. And so I went back to a lot of my old notes from the early sessions with Carlos, and I started thinking about how he was conveying things to me. And, you always put your own little spin on it when you teach. You have to throw your own style or personality or the way you do things. And I think that's when it hit. But, it really comes down to some really simple principles. And the complex stuff, the really, really complex play, you just don't need it most of the time. But you need to understand kind of what it's rooted in. And, and I think that's where, studying with Carlos, but then also kind of following what other stuff Carlos was studying. Like I kind of just followed him. He was with, when he was studying at TPE, I started studying TPE. When he was studying with Ryan LaPlante, or with Alex Fitzgerald or Ryan LaPlante or Andrew Brokus, I was just following him along and picking up nuggets. And that's, how I met you, Rob, was followed Carlos to Ryan LaPlante, and then I met you, and then, it all kind of took off.
So those notes still exist. You still have the notes.
Oh yeah. They're all in a Google Doc.
Very cool. Did you guys ever talk
now?
Do you guys ever talk teaching stuff like in the early days? Was there a lot of talk about teaching and teaching strategy and whatnot?
I think that we connected in the idea that at the end of the day, teaching is a social endeavor. It's a relational thing. And if your students know that you care about them, then they'll care. Carlos, you have that saying, how's it go? They don't care how much you know until you know how much you care. Students
don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I always say you cannot teach people that if you don't know them. I mean know them as people. And so I really like knowing my students. I think that's where we both connect as teachers. That's so important to us that you care. I mean, Carlos cares about his students' success, his poker student. Like he would come down. I remember one day I landed in Vegas and I was going to play a tournament the next day, and I was like over at the Rio just to take it all in. And I was like, I'll just jump in a satellite, and I win it. And Carlos was like, you're here like 2 hours, you've already won something. But he cared. He came by, and I was just made the money in some 1K event, and he came over and was on the rail. And I walked over and he told me who some guy was at the table. I didn't know, some pro, which then made me call off in a spot that I would never have called off in if I thought it was just some random person. I was right. He drew out on me. I busted. But we did make the money. But he cared enough to come down and stay on the rail and talk. And, he's got lots of things to do and ways to use his time. But the fact that he took the time to do that always struck a chord with me. Is like, this is a teacher who cares. And so I think that's where we connect.
Very cool. These next two questions come from one of our Wrecking Crew members, Scott Lum, who wants to know, how important has coaching been to your success at the table, and how does it differ from what you learned through self-study?
I think it's really important. Carlos has coached me, but I would lump you, Rob, you as far as people. I have coaches, plural. Jay Venom he's my mental coach. Mika, getting that feedback on hands from people you trust who will be honest with you. I think it's crucial. When you study on your own, you can often kind of convince yourself that you understand what you're studying. Oh, I got it. I got it. I got it. You don't have it. When you start talking it out with someone else and you have to explain it, you realize you don't have it. But when you're just studying by yourself, you can really easily convince yourself that you understand what it is you're studying when you really don't. You don't understand it until you can explain it back. And so when I teach, Carlos does, like, I have my students explain it to me. Pretend I'm somebody who doesn't know what I know, and explain it to me. And if they can't explain it to me, then I was like, well, we've got to get to the point where you can explain it. And I think that when you're studying alone, that's often difficult because you don't have that check.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I would say,
go ahead,
I would just add that the worst thing you can do as a teacher or a coach is to explain something to the student and then ask them if they got it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, yep. And they'll go to their friend and say, I didn't understand anything he said. So Craig's right that you can't just ask them. You actually have to check for their understanding by having them explain it back to you. And then they're going to make mistakes, but those mistakes are opportunities to learn. So you can correct those. And then that back and forth, the iterations of going back and forth there will solidify that knowledge in their mind, as opposed to, even if they think they heard what you said correctly. Like, we all have, had situations where we've told somebody something, they went and did something completely opposite from what we told them to, but they came back and said, yeah, you told me to do that. No, I didn't. But there's that breakdown if you don't, have them spit it back to you. So I think Craig is 100% correct on that.
I like it. And then a question for both of you, recommendations for taking advice from a coach and how to solidify it into your strategy at the table.
Ooh, recommendations for taking advice from a coach and how to, okay. Well, I would say this, you have to be really careful to not try to be someone else. I see this as, I see people teaching like this, where they go in front of a classroom and they just try to be a teacher that they had before. Instead of like allowing themselves to be themselves a little bit. At the end of the day, you have to do things that are comfortable for you. I think you have to be uncomfortable at times, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, but it still has to be within your persona. And so bringing a little bit of yourself to the table and allowing you to not be, you're not just playing a playbook. I mean, Carlos writes a playbook and we have a playbook, but there's a latitude to trusting that in the moment, it's right to kind of veer to the left or the right because of things you're understanding. And you have to, and that just takes repetition and comfort of sitting at the table and saying, okay, I know this is kind of what we do here, but I have a reason for why I'm not. And sometimes when you see a hand in isolation, like somebody else send me a hand, and what they did might look ridiculous, but I didn't see the last 5 hands before that where the person they're playing against did something even more ridiculous. And so they're just countering that. And I think I think if you only lock into here's the playbook, run the play, you're missing opportunities to A, apply some of your own personality, and B, also respond to what's happening in the moment. Poker is such a dynamic game that you have to be careful to just like, here's the set of rules, I'm going to play them.
And I would add to that, it's important for the student to buy into the thing that the teacher is saying. And in order for that to happen, they have to try it. And whenever you're trying something new, I would recommend not trying it at the top of your buy-in level, because that's going to prevent you from trying some of the more, out there sort of things your coaches might suggest to you. But if you try these things, make sure you have the understanding, like we mentioned before. But when you experiment with these things, try them at the lower end of your buy-in level. And when you gain the experience of these things working, then it more naturally slots into your own game and it becomes your own. Like Craig said, a lot of what I taught him came from my coaches, but it didn't come, to Craig from them directly. It came from them telling me this thing, me being afraid to try it, but being willing to try and make the mistakes and bring my mistakes back and have that back and forth I mentioned. And at some point it becomes a part of my game, and it solidifies that knowledge to your question. And now, because it's now part of my game, is more natural and comfortable for me to do it regardless of my buy-in level. So I think that part is important, is being willing to try the things that you're learning, but start slow at the lower buy-ins, and then naturally you'll get to a point where you're not just, like Craig said, trying to become a carbon copy of your coach. You've kind of like internalized this, and you'll put your own spin on it, like he said as well.
Great advice for those of you out there who are studying and learning poker at any level. Reminder to get your questions in the YouTube chat. If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to join us on Monday night, 7:30 Eastern, live on the Rec Poker YouTube channel, and you can get your questions answered. Already have a bunch of wonderful questions wonderful questions that have been put in the chat. I'm dropping them in the document, so we will be getting to them throughout the show. And I want to ask one of them right now. Mike Day asks, Craig, what was the most memorable piece of advice you ever got from Carlos that aided you in your bracelet win?
Well, I mean, this is something he just drilled into me for years and years and years. It was all about targeting. I mean, throughout the tournament, I was really cognizant of, like, sometimes we just bet because, like, oh, I opened, so I'm just going to bet. I'm going to see bet. Like, really considering, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what is this bet going to accomplish? And then to question that assumption, it's going to get called by a worse hand. Well, is it? Or is that bet only ever getting called by a better hand and you just value owned yourself? Or what is my target? And if, like, well, maybe I can get them to call off with, like, something pretty weak. Well, what bet size does that? And really working through that. Same with the bluffs. Like, okay, I'm going to bluff this guy off of second pair. Wait, where's this guy from? Is he really going to fold second pair? Is he going to fold top pair bad kicker? He should, based on the board. The board's gross. Why would you call it top pair top kicker? Because they want to. So making yourself go through that process of saying, what am I attempting to do? What is this bet going to accomplish? And then questioning if that's actually going to work. And there are times I'm like, that's not going to work, Craig. And I just wouldn't do it. And sometimes I just had to check down and lose because I wasn't going to get them off a hand. And I just never, and then I had other people. I had Ginger in my ear going, don't punt, Craig, late in the tournament. Remember your ICM. I had Venom saying, keep chips in front of you. I had all these voices in my head. I heard Andrew Broca say, just because you're stacked short, you don't have to round it down to zero. It still chips. I had Rob, I had your voice in my head, like, all the time. I had all these people's, and I was just sitting there saying, I don't know if there was like a specific thing, but that targeting thing, it's the bedrock of everything I do in poker, is that of making myself go through that process. And now I can do it pretty fast. Like, it sounds like it's slow. When you talk it out, it's a slow process. But when you get those reps in, that stuff happens very fast. And you're also thinking ahead a little bit, like, okay, I'm gonna do this here, and then depending on certain flops, I already have in mind which flops I'm gonna do which things with, and so it speeds it up. And that's just repetition.
Very cool. I want to switch gears here real quick and talk about fitness and health. I've been on a fitness journey the last 4 months.
You look great,
motivated. Rob. I'm working on it. Motivated because my wife on a daily basis now asks me when I'm going to look as good as Craig does. You know, she's seen some of the pictures of him flexing at the gym, and I have work to do apparently to catch up with you. But yeah, I want to talk about this because it's important. You know, Lorian, I know you had a very specific question you wanted to ask him about this to kick it off.
I did. Thanks. So recently you had your annual physical and you mentioned that your age appears to have gone down.
Yeah.
First, tell us why health and fitness is so important to you and how it impacts your poker game.
Well, I've had family members that have struggled with health late in life. And I was an athlete for a very long time until I couldn't be anymore. And so, but I was never a gifted athlete. I was never naturally gifted. I'm not big. I'm not fast. I'm not gifted. But I was a very, very determined athlete, and that got me a long way. And so as an older person now, I'm kind of just determined to not let a lack of attention to fitness be something that makes it so that late in life I can't do the active things I want to do. Now, when it comes to poker, it's hard. You have to be in shape. If you really want to be on top of your game, your physical fitness and your mental fitness go hand in hand. And that has to do with sleep hygiene and your fitness, like getting the proper sleep, getting the proper food, getting the right exercise. And for me, it's all about like optimizing my physiology so that I can be optimally in my cognitive, in my thinking. So I really, really focus on it. I go to the gym every day. It doesn't matter what's going on. I'm going to get a little bit of a workout in, depending on kind of what my objectives are. But I do think that helps at the poker table, especially when you're going out for these long series. Every single day I was in Las Vegas, I went to the gym. At a fitness center at the condo where I was staying, and it was adequate. It allowed me to do a modified workout of what I would do at home, and I didn't break routine. Every single morning, I got up, I went straight to the gym. I came back, I made my eggs, I got my blueberries, I got my orange juice, I got my vitamins, and I mixed it all up, and I ate the same thing every morning. And then I went out and played, and rinse and repeat. Now, the later we got in the trip, the more the sleep deprivation caught up to me, because I also tried to get a really good sleep. But there were a couple of nights where I just didn't sleep well. And then I had to, change some of the supplements and some of the food a little bit. And in the last couple of days, I would argue that I did let it slip a little bit. I was in celebration mode, but it's not like so rigid. I bought ice cream.
Okay.
I come back from my tournament. I have my bust out ice cream. Mm-hmm. So I bust the tournament, come home, eat some ice cream. And then the night that we won, Deanna said, Craig, you can't have your bust out ice cream tonight. I was like, good point. We might have to have some new ice cream, some celebration ice cream, but I don't know. You have to give yourself these rewards too. But it's something I've been doing for a long time, and it's a part of kind of how I go about it. And I do believe that routine is very good for people.
So you never give sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, so you said you work out every day. You don't ever take like just a break to...
No, I should, but I don't. Oh. I don't. There are days when I'll walk into the gym and I'm like, I just don't want to do this today. And then I'm pretty stubborn, and I have a pretty mean internal dialogue with myself, and I'll berate myself, and I just mentally bully myself into like, well, you're going to finish. But the part about getting up and going, it's so automatic now. I just get up and I go. And by the time I realize what I've done, I'm halfway to the gym anyway. It's like, well, you might as well work out now. You're there.
So no cheat day? Come on, Craig. You got to do a cheat day.
I'll cheat on meals.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But not on your workout.
I have a very strong relationship.
Okay. Good to know. Okay.
So we obviously see people who find success in poker and talk about how important the health stuff is to their success. And we see some people win in poker who could give two shits about health. There's right. different paths. What would you say to people who are maybe on the fence that, like, how How has the health stuff helped you be a better poker player?
First I would say just try it, give it a try. And the biggest thing I try is like, what you don't have to go as extreme as I go. And there are times when I even tell myself this is a little extreme. But create some habit pattern that works for you. And it might just be going for a walk in the morning before you go play, and doing meditation while you walk, or listening to the Thinking Poker Daily, which is what I do when I walk on the treadmill when I warm up, because that's my physical warm up. It's also my poker warm up. And so I would say just try that. Try a little bit of playing around with kind of like what your vitamins are and that type of thing to find what and I'm very strict about my caffeine intake. I think caffeine's a wonderful drug, but I also keep it away from my sleep, because I think sleep's even more important than the caffeine. But trying to like get it in my system at the right quantities at the right time, which is hard because poker is such a late night thing sometimes. I do struggle at end of day. I also don't eat much when I play. I eat all the time, but I don't eat meals. I have protein bars and I have granola, and I try to keep my blood sugar pretty constant. I hate, on the dinner break, I don't go eat a meal. That wrecks me to go eat a full meal and then go back to the table. So I think that these are things that, and everybody's physiology is different. I don't think that what I do is right for everybody. It's just right for me.
I like that. Reminder, get your YouTube questions in the chat. We'll be asking them throughout the thing. God, I'm so bad at this. We need Jim Reed back throughout the podcast here. Any of your super chat donations you make in YouTube will be shared with a local food bank. You can also help us out by going to rec.poker/support. Again, we really depend on the support from all of our wonderful premium members who take part in our training materials, just $22 a month. And we love supporting food banks around the world. This is obviously a very special and difficult time in life for a lot of people. And Joe, I know you had some passionate thoughts about kind of the certain current circumstances and why food banks are so important right now.
It was really kind of brought to mind by listening to Poker Twitter blow up about 4 days ago with regards to pro poker players and the impact that the tax changes were going to have in terms of profits versus losses. And I think that all cards on the table, I think it's just a terrible way and an unfair way to treat tax policy, to make somebody pay only 90%, which is one of the very few business models where it is. But what I found interesting about it was the big blow up that happened on Poker Twitter suddenly was like, well, we need to get lobbyists and we need to get a push so that this is removed from the bill. In a bill where 25% of SNAP, which is a food assistance program for the poor, was removed to force people to work in a different way. And a great number of people on Medicaid are going to be removed. And if you think people aren't on Medicaid, that's usually some sort of state level, like it's called Badger Care in Wisconsin. It's called Husky in Connecticut. All of those are basically low income insurance plans that I'm willing to bet a lot of pro poker players actually end up taking advantage of, given some of their situations. So a lot of money was removed from the bill that helps people out. And I'm not trying to get into politics on here. That's not what this purpose is for. But I do want to say, over the course of the next few years, for whatever your politics are, understand that food banks are not going to be able to keep up with the demand that's going to increase on the basis of the removal of these programs. And so if you have money and you're doing well in life, I think it's partly your responsibility to help out in this moment, because people are going to need it. And the people who don't have food are not going to have as many places to go. So really think about that when you're thinking about where your money can go this year.
Well said.
Well said.
Agreed.
And like I said, I agree with you. Rick and I had that conversation too. I'll say this and just move on, not to get too political, but I just thought it was, of all the things for Poker Twitter to get up in arms about, one part of the bill that had so many more things in there that impact so many, like you said, so many more people, that it's really going to hurt. But that's all I'll say about that.
What I'll say politically is not necessarily red or blue, okay? But these are all things that if we all work together, right? I want the poker players, the poker pros to be able to make money and deduct things. Well, if they get together with the people who think it's important for SNAP benefits to be increased as well as insurance benefits, that's a lot more people. And we may be able to do something very direct. But if we're splintered, focusing on very small aspects of, I appreciate what poker players are trying to do, but you're very, very tiny. And it's very hard to get enough noise to make somebody listen. But if there's a lot of us, maybe we got a shot.
Agreed.
Yeah. And again, even the littlest amount can make a difference. So again, anybody that wants to make a donation to the food bank, you can email us and send us a receipt of that and get a free month of Rec Poker Premium membership. You can also get a free month of Rec Premium membership by using promo code podcast at checkout. And for just $5, you can get your first month. Shout out to all of the new premium members. This is usually when Jim will list them by name. I don't have them. So whoever you're out there, if you've just joined recently as a premium member, we appreciate you being here. And also a shout out to our Patreon. Those of you who want maybe the audio versions of all of our study tools and materials over at Rec.Poker, you can join our Patreon and support that way as well. All right, we're going to get to our featured event here. We're going to talk about the big story this summer.
Something happened this summer?
Something happened this summer. Yeah. Jake Paul got knocked out. It was an amazing thing. I'm really excited to talk about that tonight. No, we're going to talk about this exciting bracelet. But before we get into that, Lorianne has some questions, not about this year, but about last year.
Okay. Let's take it away. Well, as Rob said, before we get into this year, last year you came out for the WSOP and you had a rough summer. Can you talk about that experience and how that shaped your goals and plans for this year?
Yeah, last year I came out for 2 weeks. I had a schedule. I had a plan. Venom, Jake Carafiello and I stayed together in a hotel room for 2 weeks. That was an adventure. I stayed with my fitness routine. I did, it was harder eating, but I did work out every day. And Rob convinced me that I should go on the Geezers tour and play all the seniors events because that would be the best value. And so I came out when all the senior events were happening because I'm a geezer, and I played them all and I got wrecked by all the old guys. And Jay was telling me, get out of those games, go play with the young Euros. This is where your game's built for. You've been doing all this high level studying. You got to, and then I did jump out of there and go play an ARIA event. And I was like alive, man, just playing and like really just like going back and forth at a very high level. I didn't cash, but I felt like I was playing well. But yeah, I never got deep in any event until the very last one, and I came in 10th place in an event. It kind of saved the bankroll aspect of the summer, but I came away from it feeling pretty beat up. And that happens. So you go out there and you can and sometimes it has nothing to do with the quality of your play. You're catching the wrong end of variance, or you convince yourself of that. And I remember it's funny because I posted a little clip and I was coming out of the gym and it was like the 7th or 8th day in a row of not cashing a tournament. And I was looking in the camera and I was saying, like, this is what it's like. This is what you have to get used to. This is how it's going to happen. And there's a part of me, I remember the video, I said, there's a part of me that doesn't want to go play today because I don't want the pain. And there's another part of me that knows the only way to play your way out of it. And so, I buckled up and I went and played and I took the pain. And, anybody who plays tournament poker has got at some level to enjoy the pain a little bit because you're going to suffer the pain a lot of the time. But, it's kind of what we signed up for. And I came back from that, like I said, feeling pretty beat up. But then I got together with the team and the team. This is such an important aspect of this. I have a team around me, Rob and Jay and Deanna, Mika, Brett, Sean. Did I forget anybody? Carlos, my coach. And we work together and we talk to each other and we see what happens is you're not going to have success all the time. But if someone else in your team is having success, then you kind of feed off of that a little bit. You get excited for them. You realize you can still win at poker even if you're not winning, and it keeps you afloat. And then you start talking about like, what are you doing that's working? What are you doing that's working? What are you seeing? And we have a little different player pools. Like 3 of us are here in the Dallas area, where there's a very specific player pool that you have to adjust for. It's like, well, what's working for you? What's working here? And as we talk this stuff out, it kind of toughened me up. Now I don't get to play full time all the time because I have a full-time job and I teach. So there are times in the year where I just can't get out and play. So now I'm grinding online, trying to get my reps in, trying to get my volume up, trying to try out things at lower buy-ins. But what really happened was it set the table for coming back this year much, much stronger. I don't know if that answered your question fully, but like last summer's lack of success really set me up for this year's success, because it kind of, we used it as, okay, let's make a roadmap.
Okay. No, totally makes sense. And thank you for being, I guess, so open about that whole thing, because that's something a lot of us go through, especially tournament players. But my next question is, heading into this summer, how were you feeling and what was your game plan for this trip?
Yeah, this was where the real prep work started, because I feel like every year that I've gone out, I feel a little rusty coming out of the winter into the spring. And then all spring, I keep telling myself, well, I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get ready. And then the spring goes by and I get busy again. And all of a sudden it's summer. It's like, okay, now it's time to go perform. But I haven't been playing live. I've just been playing online. And, they're different. There's something about sitting at the table and making these subtle adjustments to what you're seeing and how people are playing that you don't get through a computer screen, even though you get your theoretical and you get your numbers and you get your math on the computer screen. But Rob and Jay made a prop bet with me. They bet me that I couldn't play 20 live poker tournaments between February and June. And at first I didn't think I could either, because I looked at the calendar, like there aren't enough weekends and I can't play during the week. Not tournaments. And kind of, I don't want to say they bullied me, but they kind of bullied me. And here's the biggest motivator, and people who know me will know why this worked. If I lost the bet, the punishment, this wasn't a monetary thing. The punishment was I was going to have to wear a North Carolina Tar Heel hat the whole time I was in Vegas. And as soon as that was the rule, there's no way I'm not playing these 20 tournaments. There's no way in the world. I mean, it would probably make my scalp get a rash. The rest of my hair would fall out. It would be unbelievably awful. And so I did it. I played the 20 tournaments. And the nice thing about it was I actually came out profitable. I ran deep in a couple. I made money, so I profited. But it wasn't that. It was the reps. It was the live reps. So when I hit the ground in Vegas this summer, I was already in mid-season mode in terms of like my fine tuning of my play and what I was seeing. I landed on Saturday. I drove straight to the Nugget and I entered the seniors and I cashed just right off the bat, like boom. So now your confidence is high. And for me, and I don't know about other poker players, but for me, my confidence can get shaken, and then I know I'm not playing my best. But hitting that first, okay, we're at one on the book, 1 for 1. Now my confidence is up. Now I'm like believing in myself. I'm trusting my reads. I'm trusting my coaching, and it just kind of went forward from there. And I did map out a schedule that was a little bit of everything. I played 3 events at the World Series, but I actually only played 2 because I never played the tag team. I mean, I played it, but I didn't play a hand in it. I had 3 events at the Nugget, 1 at the Orleans, 1 at MGM, 1 at Aria. So I was kind of spreading myself out in terms of different player pools and not just focusing on one thing. And certainly if you go out there and I'll tell people, if you go out there and you only are going to play the WSOP, it's very difficult to come away with a profitable summer. There's just so many other things you have to kind of find which tournaments are going to fit you. But I think I had a really good plan. And the other big part of it, Lorianne, I think this was a huge part of it this year, is I did not stay in a hotel on the Strip. I was off Strip. I was in a condo. I had a full kitchen. I had access to a nice fitness room, a pool, a living room. And when I left at night from these tournaments, I came back to a place that didn't feel like I was in Vegas, and I got away. And I think that was a huge part of it for me this summer, was that part of it. And I will, as long as I can afford to do that, I will do that every time. It was wonderful making my own meals in the morning, not having to like find something on the way to a tournament on the strip.
I agree with that. I think getting away was important, but Craig, I think you're leaving out the most important aspect to winning a bracelet this summer, what it was for you.
Getting lucky.
And for everybody listening, if you want to win a bracelet, before you come out here, have your packages, your Amazon packages delivered to me. Okay. Yes. That's the first step to having a successful summer. I just want to put it out in the universe now.
I had my protein shakes and my tea and some other stuff shipped to Lorianne. And she's like, you shipped bricks to my house. It was so heavy. You have to come get it. I did ship out some stuff, and I had an Amazon delivered to Lorianne, and then I went over to her place and picked it up. It was heavy, but yeah, I had my tea, I had my yerba, my mate every morning.
That's right.
My protein shakes.
Stay off strip and have your Amazon packages delivered to me. It's a winning strategy.
I just want to point out
other studying stuff. No, I'm kidding.
I just want to point out that there's a high correlation between being a guest on my PsyOps podcast and winning a bracelet. I mean, there's only about 13 episodes, so 1 in 13 members. That's a pretty good number. I'm just saying.
If you can have Deanna Chabatone on your rail, your chances just tripled, because she's the luckiest railbird ever.
So Craig, not everybody I don't know that knows this unless they really follow you closely. Before you won this bracelet, you made a really deep run in the Nugget main. I think you finished 13th, 14th, 12th. Sorry.
12th.
What was your mentality like after getting that close and coming up short? How did you feel after that tournament, and what did you do between that and the main, or the freeze out?
So yeah, I mean, I entered that tournament thinking that if you'd have said, here's your schedule for the summer, Craig, which one do you think you have the best chance of winning? I would have said that one. So that's my best chance to actually win one this summer. And then I made I fired 2 bullets to all transparency. I busted the first bullet, and it was a little bit later than I would usually re-reg, because there was another flight the next day I could have registered. Usually I like to start at the beginning. And I'm texting you and Jay, and Jay's like, reg now. You budgeted 2 bullets, get right back in there right now. And I did. And the very first hand that I played on my second bullet, I tripled, and with quads. And I needed the quads to win the hand, by the way, because I got all in against top pair. I had bottom set against middle set against top pair. So I'm behind, and I just hit quads on the turn. And that was off to the races. So
1 outer?
Yeah, you just got lucky. Triple stack, and now I'm just off to the races. And I just once, and then you're like, your confidence is back. You'd do anything to earn it. But like, okay, I can play this game again. Anyway, I made a deep run, came back for a day 2, and came really close. And you're close to that final table. And then coming in 12th, I went home and I was like, well, first thing is first. That score, that 12th place score, was a pretty good score, like monetarily. It's like, I looked at it, I was like, well, there's right now, if I played everything else on my schedule and didn't make a dime, I'm having a profitable summer, including all my costs. So that just takes a huge burden off. Now it's like, there's no pressure. You're not going to leave the summer a loser on the bankroll. So I think that actually made everything much, much easier. The very next day, I entered the freeze out. And the freeze out was, I wasn't going to play it. This is a day, talk about being bullied. I got bullied. Deanna bullied me into playing the freeze out. I don't want to play it. It's a $500 tournament with a gazillion people. It's a nightmare. And on the first break of the day, I complained to her. I was like, Dave, why are we playing this stupid tournament? Craig, it's a $500 tournament that's going to have over $2 million in the prize pool. Why would you not play it? I was like, because it's like playing the lottery, and I don't play the lottery. Who's going to win this thing? And she said to me, this is a true story. She says, you will thank me when you win. When you win, you'll thank me. And
Did you?
Oh, yes. I thanked her as soon as I made the money. I was like, Day, thank you for bullying me to play this tournament. And then, and the other thing about it is, I didn't want to play the 500 freeze out because if you made day 2, you couldn't play. That's the tag team. And Day and I were going to play the tag team. And I really wanted to play the tag team. It'd be fun. We got matching shirts and everything. And so Day's like, look, we'll both play the freeze out. And if we both make day 2, then obviously we don't play the tag team. If neither of us make day 2, we play the tag team. And if one of us makes day 2, one of us doesn't, the other one will start the tag team, and the other one, when they bust, will come over. Well, I never busted. And so she's playing the tag team. And for it to count, at some point I have to go over there and play an orbit, or at least play the blinds. So on the first break of the day, I ran over, and I was in Horseshoe and she was in Paris. I had to run over. And I ran over, and the blinds had just passed her. So I ran back. Oh. And then I thought, okay, maybe on dinner break. In the meantime, there's no breaks in the tag team tournament. So Day can't even take a bathroom break without missing hands. Right? So she's over there just playing it on her own. I'm supposed to be over there helping. And anyway, she got very unfortunate and got somebody played really bad and busted her, but they made a mistake and got lucky. And so she came over, and now we're in day, I made day 2, and then she's railing for that freeze out. And it was just one of those tournaments. It was really, really weird. In level 10, I had a half a starting stack. I mean, and a couple times between level 1 and 10, I got like a little bit over starting stack, but never more than 10,000 over starting stack. And in level 10, I started with half a starting stack. And I think I did really well during level 10. And I started level 11 with like a double stack. But from that point on, I was never over 30 big blinds for the whole rest of the tournament. So it was just one of those tournaments where I just said to myself, keep chips in front of you, keep chips in front of you. And that's what I did.
Rob Bosham, I know you have a couple questions for Craig about his run.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I've never been in that spot, so I'd like to find out from you what it's like. At what point in time did you think that you could win this? And then when you started to think this, how did you center yourself and be able to stay focused and be able to play your best game?
I think when we got to the 3-table redraw, when they went at 27 people, they redrew for seats. At that point, you're sitting there looking around going, one of these 27 people is going to get a bracelet. Why not me? That's when I first started thinking about like winning. Up until then, I was paying attention to, okay, maybe I should fold to the next ladder. Like these are significant pay jumps. I was proud of myself for another day 2, another cash. Maybe I can get to a final table. I didn't do it at the Nugget, but I actually wasn't thinking about that. I just said, I have just as good a chance as anybody else at this point. I looked around the room, and there were some really good players left. But here's the thing. Nobody was deep stacked. You can only be so much better than me if we're all playing 25 bigs. I played, 10 years at 25 bigs. I know how to play a 25 big blind stack, and you can be Phil Ivey, and you can't do much to outplay me at 25 bigs. I mean, there's only we're playing 1 and 2 street poker. If we're 150 big blinds deep and you're going to take me to the turn and river in some really tough spots, yeah, the best players in the world are going to outplay me. But I have spent a lot of time at those stack depths, and I know how to navigate them. And this is something that Jay Carafiello and I worked on a lot during the spring, is navigating late stages with these small stacks, because we get in these situations a lot, because we get to play all these tournaments locally where we're going to get deep and we're going to be shallow. And what we've learned is that other people are going to just step on the landmines and go away, and you're just left, and you're like, I'm still here. And if you can just do that enough, so then we're at 2 tables left. And I'm like, okay, all right. But in terms of like being centered, and staying focused, I just kept thinking next hand. Like I didn't think about the bigger picture. I was like, I only going to play the stack that I have and the hand that I'm dealt. Now I was really tuned into other people, and I was seeing other people kind of get caught up in the moment. There were a few people late in the tournament that they had never been in this situation. So I kind of was watching them to make big mistakes. And then there were a couple of people late in the tournament that had been here a lot. And I kind of knew who was who. And that was a big part of me navigating. For example, if I'm on the button or cutoff and Arthur Morris is in the big blind, I'm not opening hands that are marginal because he's really, really good and he knows I handle it. But if it's somebody whose biggest score to date is like 1,200, well, now I'm going to open because I know they're going to tighten up. And so that was a lot of how I navigated late stages. I had to kind of really know who was, and who's going to be defending, and I had to be careful when a really good player is on the button and I'm going to open in front of them and they have me covered and they can flat, and then I got to play out of position. So a lot of it was adjusting my ranges to those types of things. And all spring I was doing that, preparing for that. So that happened. And then I would say that like when we got to 10 and they consolidated to one unofficial final table, part of me first thought was like, oh my gosh, you just made the final table of a WSOP event. And then I said to myself, no, you haven't. Not until there's 9 people. 9 people is the final table. And so I said to myself, you will not be the 10th person that busts this tournament. I was willing to fold until someone busted to final table the WSOP tournament. And there were, and this is where all the ICM studying came in, because I had people out chipped, and I understood, and I blew this a couple summers ago. I final tabled an ARIA event and I blew it from an ICM standpoint, like absolutely cost myself thousands of dollars because I did not understand ICM. But now I've studied it a lot. And I said to myself, you're not busting before that short stack. And then there was another short stack. You're not busting before that short stack. And so ICM played a big part of how I played the final table, to the point where I made one mistake where I opened and then I c-bet on a board where I shouldn't from an ICM standpoint. Like I should like pot control. And then I got check raised and I had to fold. And I was super mad at myself because I knew better. And I was like, and that kind of like shook me to get back in. So getting to the final 9 was like a big thing. And then I looked at the board for the payouts. And I said, okay, if I can make 5th place, it'd be my biggest score ever. Once I hit 5th place, I never looked at it. I don't know what 4th place paid. I don't know what 3rd place paid. I don't know what 2nd place paid. I just knew it didn't matter at that point. Now I'm just trying to win. And I think had I looked at the board and saw the difference between 1st and 2nd place, it would have affected my play, because I'm well studied at heads up play. Like I've done a lot of it. I've studied it. I'll intentionally play heads up. But that was a big pay jump, and I never looked at the board.
Carlos, question for you. At what point did you hear about this deep run and make your way over to the rail? And what were you thinking as you kind of watched this play out?
I heard about this when Craig got down to 3-handed. In fact, I was just at the Horseshoe for something else and came back home pretty late. It must have been like 11:30. And I came back in, and because I was out all day, I hadn't been checking Twitter. And so I checked Twitter, and I saw Craig post a video saying that he was 3-handed in a Bracelet event. And I'm thinking, like, I just left him down there. I wish I'd known. So I told Gloria, I got to go. So I came back 11:30 at night, turned right back around. Not going to say I ran any red lights, but I came pretty close. Trying to get back down there while this tournament was going on. And for those who haven't been out this year, you may not know that the World Series has an app now called WSOP Plus, where you can kind of like rail tournaments through the app. And so I'm kind of like watching the clock tick down on this tournament. I'm seeing, that Craig is still 3-handed, but the app doesn't update the stack sizes each time. So I'm driving. I got this app going, and I see the clock pause. And so when the clock paused, I was like, okay, something happened. I don't know what happened, but something happened. And at the time I was watching it, the 3 players all had roughly equal stacks. And I see one of the players disappear. The name disappeared. It wasn't Craig. But the stacks didn't update. So I don't know which Craig or the other guy. I don't know who busted this other player. So I don't know if I, should turn around. Did Craig just no, Craig didn't bust. But basically that's what I was thinking, like, before this third player busted, I'm trying to rush down there. I didn't want to like tell Craig, almost as like, revenge, because he didn't tell me that he was going to say. I wanted to come in and surprise him. So I didn't tell him, but I was like, I'm going to head back down there. And if he happens to like bust when I'm like 5 minutes down the road, then I can just turn back around. But that third guy busted, and I didn't know if Craig had busted him or the other guy, and whoever had busted him would have had like a 2-1 chip lead, maybe even more, heads up. And then probably by the time I parked and darted across the street, I saw that Craig's stack updated and he had busted the guy. And so I was like, okay, Craig has like, 2 or 3-1 chip lead, heads up. And so I get into the building. I'm just like sprinting full speed, trying to get down to where the table is being held. And when I walk into the room, I see Craig. The clock paused again while I was like, on my way in there. But they didn't, bust. They didn't remove a player. They didn't update stacks or anything. But because the clock was paused, I knew that, something was going on. They couldn't have been discussing the deal because it's WSOP.
WSOP, right?
So I figured somebody, something big happened. And as soon as I walked in the room, the first thing I see is, Craig sitting at the table, holding up the bracelet, taking the winner's picture. So I make my way over to where the tournament is being held. And by this time he gotten up and like, everybody's congratulating him. And I just like, tap him on his shoulder and just give him a big hug. And man, it was like a great moment.
And the coolest part was that hug got caught on camera.
Yeah.
I sent you that picture, Rob. And it was such a good moment. And the thing about it is like this. Yeah, there it is. I mean, who's happier, him or me? I don't know.
Right. Well, man, the way you described that journey to the bracelet was almost identical to mine. When you talked about, being down to 3 tables and now it's, starting to get real, and, trying to get, the final table come hell or high water. Like, you're not going to be the bubble boy for the official final table, down to, just wanting to meet your biggest score. And then once you do, it's like, why not me? Like,
why not me?
Almost to a T. Those are my exact same thoughts when I won my bracelet. So from, like Craig mentioned earlier, being teachers in Atlanta, being people who, have been associated with the Think of Poker podcast, and just like so many parallels between Craig and I, that was a great moment to see that, we started together, and, I basically went on that path and reached the pinnacle. And then 4 years later, he does the same thing. It was such an amazing moment.
I want to ask you about that, Carlos, real quick. Sorry, Craig. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna send him a message, and I was like, man, the last time I did that, he came down there and I just busted like before the final table or something. It was like so anticlimactic, and he's like, I wasted his time. I was like, I don't want to like sent him a note and he rushed down there, and then I busted 15th or something. And then after that, I was too busy to like send a message and say, hey, I'm getting to the final table. It was like a total out of body experience from that point on. I don't remember a lot of the little details. I mean, Rob, Day was asking me how many big blinds you have. I was like, I have no idea. I can't do the math anymore. I have 35 million chips in front of me. I can't divide something by 35 million by any number. And they took your phone away at the final tables. I couldn't even get my calculator out. She's like, go count your stack and figure out how many big blinds you have. And I was like, I can't anymore. My brain's not doing math anymore. But yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he saw my post.
We're all in the text group, and Day, I love Day to death, but I don't know if she was tired or what, but she's typing in the chat. She's like, there's an all in, and we're all like on pins and needles, and then she just types, he won. No exclamation marks, no like excitement, just he won. And we're like, who won? And then there was no response for like 3 minutes, and we're just like stuck in agony, like what the heck happened? Carlos, I want to ask you another question. As a coach, what is it like seeing a student of yours that you've poured into get to that level and reach that achievement?
It's almost as good as winning myself. Like I enjoy studying poker and teaching poker much more than I enjoy playing it. So to see the fruits of that labor, and to also see someone who is not just a student, but also a friend get to that point, who I know the work they put in. I know the grind. I know the ups and downs. It's like, man, it's like living in a movie almost. And like knowing the protagonist of the movie and just being able to follow that story. It's amazing, man. Like, if you are doing any sort of coaching out there, I highly recommend your student win bracelets, because it's one of the best things that can happen.
Yep.
Very cool. So Craig, I've been waiting to ask you this question. I've intentionally waited. I had this question the night you won, and I've been holding on to it for this moment. You're at this final table. You've dreamed about this. You've been playing poker for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you put your chips in the middle. Your opponents put their chips in the middle. You flip over queens, and you see your opponent flip over ace king. And
I almost vomited.
I have to imagine, right, that some part of you, if I was in that spot, would be thinking, for the love of God, I don't know if I'll ever be in this spot again. And my entire 20-year career is coming down to one of these stupid ass flips that we feel in poker. What is going through your mind in that moment as that dealer is getting ready to spread those cards?
It's funny you say that, because like the plan heads up was to walk the dog. Like my plan was, we'll play 30, 40 hands. We'll play a couple hours. I'm in it for the long haul. I can play heads up. I'll nickel and dime you all day long. I'm not going to give up any big pots. I'm just going to walk the dog until I get about a 3 or 4 to 1 chip lead, and then we're going to take him out. That was my plan. And I felt pretty confident. I mean, Tony's a good he's a good player, but he's a cash game player, and he plays deep stacks. And I felt I could do that. Very first hand of heads up, he opens for a raise, and I look down at aces. I 3-bet. He folds. Okay. Second hand, I limp because I'm going to play small ball. He raises. I throw it away. Third hand, he opens. I fold. Fourth hand, I limped. He raised. I fold. Fifth hand, he opens. I look down at queens. I 3-bet. He fairly quickly goes all in, and I didn't think before calling. Like I think if I would have looked over at that point and looked at the difference between first and second place, I might have hesitated. But then I'm thinking, you're never not calling. You have queens. You have the third best hand in poker. Heads up. This is like, it's like having aces 6-handed. It's like huge. I called, and when the cards were turning over, I saw the ace first, and I thought, did I just run into aces? And then I saw the king and I was like, I didn't. And I was relieved. And then I thought, oh my God, he has the two cards I don't like. This is outside of him having aces or kings. This is the worst possible outcome. And if you watch the video that they put on Instagram, that Poker News put, I turned away from the table and took 4 steps away. And I said, I can't look. I can't look. And then my brain, this voice in my brain says, no, you have to feel the entire pain. You have to see it. If it's going to come, you have to feel every bit of pain when that ace or king hits. So I turned back and I walked to the table. The flop comes out and there's the queen. And I was just like, okay, we're in the clear. And then I turn this way and I hear Tony, my opponent, say, put a jack on the turn. And my brain went, holy smokes, it's not over. He's got a backdoor straight draw. And then they do the thing where they take forever. The dealer just waits for the floor to tell them to put the turn card. And I'm like, you can see me gesturing, like, go ahead, put it down. And I think if it had been a jack or a 10, I would have had a heart attack. But it was a 6 and that was it. But yeah, I mean, seeing that ace king, I got nauseous. It was,
okay.
It was incredible.
I got to do a little coaching right now.
Don't watch the run.
You had this guy covered. So
not by a lot.
Okay, but by more than nothing. And throughout the entire time this tournament, you've been down. You battled back. So had you lost that hand, you wouldn't have been dead.
No, I wouldn't have. But I would have been crippled.
Wanting to experience that pain is fine. I wouldn't recommend it, but I think it's fine if you're covered. Where if you lose, it's over. But you don't want to feel that pain and then still have to come back from like 2 or 3 big blinds. Like you want to be solid at that point. So when you said you turned away, I was like, yes. See, we talked about this earlier. Sometimes students don't listen.
By the way, I
recommend not looking at the run out.
There is no more Craig Savage of a statement than I have to feel the pain. I mean, that is just on brand for everything he does.
That's why I walked up a 1,400-foot mountain, 14,000-foot mountain.
Realistically, none of us are going to ever experience. I would hope we all do, but realistically, most of us will never experience this. So what's it like? You win. We see you kind of buckle over. What are the emotions like? Talk to us about the first few minutes afterwards.
It was more disbelief. Like I was like, did it really happen? Is this all a dream? Am I going to wake up and like it's like that's just it didn't even happen. I don't know. It's like I've won poker tournaments before, nothing of this significance, obviously. You know what I felt? I felt good for not just me. I felt good for Carlos. I felt good for the team. Like I felt I was happy for everybody. I was happy for the team, and I was happy that I don't know. Like I really don't know. I it's hard to express because I'm still not sure it's real, except that it's right there. So it is pretty real. And I did go to the bank today and deposit the check. So not this check. This is the one my wife had made for me when I got home, my Happy Gilmore check. But I don't know, Rob. Just Rob, I got some. Just win your own and you tell us how it feels.
Yeah, he says it so easy. Just go beat 5,000 people in a freeze out and let me know how it feels. I've got a couple.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. That's the point.
I got some questions. Yeah, go ahead, Carlos.
Quickly, like I want to know if your experience was like mine. Like when I won the bracelet, it was the biggest amount of money and the biggest and most important tournament I won in an absolute sense. But relatively speaking, it wasn't. Like there was a time where I won a tournament for like 27,000 that felt like it was way more money relative to my point in my poker career and my net worth at the time. Yeah. That win was way more impactful for me than winning the bracelet. By the time I won the bracelet, I'd been successful in poker already. And it, I kind of had the feeling that Craig just mentioned, which is like, I won a tournament before. This is like a really cool tournament to win, but it's just another tournament. There wasn't like a big celebration after, except for when I got all the people congratulating me. And I kind of felt the same thing Craig mentioned, is that I was happy for Andrew. I was happy for all the people that followed me. I was happy for myself as well. But when I won that first tournament, which was smaller, it was just me. It was just me in a hotel room by myself. And that one meant more to me. Like, I needed that money. I needed that money. And I wonder, like, Craig, did you have like some other tournament before this that to the world wasn't a big deal, but it was more important to you at that time than this?
Yeah, I mean, because my first ever live tournament, this was my biggest score ever. Before that, my biggest score ever was my very first live tournament. That's a hard, like, so
yeah.
And that kicked off my true poker career. Like, I'd been playing online for 4 or 5 years before I satellited into the main, and I went out there, had no experience, none. Never been to the World Series, never played live tournament, and made day 6 of the WSOP main. Had no business doing it. Just played super tight, hit the deck a couple of times, and just stayed in the tournament. And had this big check. And that money that I won in that tournament has allowed for this 15-year career after that. And I've made money. It's not like I've been playing off that money. I've been consistently making money, but that seeded my career. And it seeded some investments that I've been able to do that have helped my net worth grow, so I can be more comfortable on a teacher's salary and then take more shots at poker. And so, yeah, that tournament probably meant more from a financial stability standpoint and from a poker bankroll and career standpoint. But now I leveraged it pretty well. I managed that poker bankroll extremely well over the years. But yeah, I mean, this won't change much in terms of, like, this isn't going to make me go out and start playing high rollers or playing bigger buy-ins. Right. I'll just play the same tournaments I've been playing. I might play more volume. I'll probably increase my volume as much as, my family and work time allows. And I'll just make some more investments and let the money keep growing.
I've got some viewer questions I want to run by both of you. First couple questions are for Craig. Eric Anderson asks, did you have any good reads during your win, and how much was GTO and how much was exploitative?
Throughout the tournament, live reads did matter a lot. Again, I think that people, the longer they play, the more they let their guard down as far as like what they're hiding and not hiding. And I'm super focused at the poker table. Like, I am locked in, and I'll notice something, and then I'll notice something hours later, and I'll put the two things together as much as I can when I can see showdowns and try to figure out what different things mean. But there was also at the final table, for example, there was just a clear misunderstanding from a handful of people about ICM, like massive misunderstanding. And I just knew that if I just let them implode, I'm going to get pay jumps. So that was a big part of it, just understanding that other people didn't understand. The GTO versus exploit, obviously earlier when you're deeper stacked, I guess you can be exploitative there too. It's very much player dependent. So if I know who I'm playing, and that's huge this year that they had the app and most people have their real name in there, you can kind of look them up. You could talk about your GTO ranges and some of the things you can do or you're supposed to do. But I would say 80% of this tournament was me using exploits. But I mean, I had reasons why, which are rooted in understanding the GTO. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is like, if you go in there and try to play like a GTO bot, you're just missing opportunities. You're misunderstanding your opponents. So that's really just a baseline. And then you have to consider which direction are my opponents making mistakes. Are they too tight? Well, I can open wider than GTO says. Are they too tight? Well, then I have to defend tighter than GTO says. And you can't just sit there and say, well, this is the range, I have to do these things. You're just going to run into it. So I would say most of the success of the tournament came from understanding the exploits.
This question comes from Jay, your mental coach, ironically.
My mental coach
wants to know how much did mental prep play into this run?
It was huge. It was absolutely, I would say it was as much of the poker study was the prep that Jay put me through boot camp, just drilled it into me. And I was, early in my 20 tournaments I was playing around here, I was punting stacks and spots I didn't need to. And I was doing things that were unnecessary. And he was just, and he's tough on me. He's like, he'll press on me, and Carlos is hard on me, when we talked about like concepts that we've talked about before. He's like, we're still making the same mistakes. It's fine if you're making new mistakes, but not the same mistakes. And Jay was really hard on me as far as prepping me for this. It was huge. And I 100% would not have done this without the support of the Chase the Dream team. It wouldn't have happened. If Mika's not, pushing back when we're talking hands, last fall, if Brett's not there, Brett got there when I think we were 5-handed or 4-handed. If Day's not on the rail, talking me down off the cliff at some point because I was mad about losing a hand, and she's like, "Move on," And when we got heads up, she's like, "This is your wheelhouse." Like, if you, Rob, didn't bring me along for the ride, a couple years ago when we started the other projects, like none of this happens. So anybody who wants to do this can do it, but I do not think you can do it solo. I don't. Maybe there are people out there who can, but every time that I did it solo, it did. Back when I was doing it solo, I just didn't have what I needed to keep me centered, to keep me grounded, to keep my spirits up when my confidence was low. And I think everybody that's been successful has found a team, of some version of a community. And you have to, the rec poker community is this large community, but within that, there are these pockets. And I got to meet River Angler Bob in Denver the other day, before I left. And it's Bob, it's Ginger, it's Cletus, it's Mike Day, SIU Ranger, it's Hubie, it's all those guys too, that I felt like this is the team. This is for them type of thing. And when Jack Effel gave me the bracelet, usually they hand you he talks, hands you the bracelet, you hold it up, everybody says, you play the anthem. I was like, I don't want the anthem. I was like, Jack, can I say a few things? He's like, okay. And he hands me the mic. He was not prepared for that. And I said, I can get this word for it. None of this happens without my Chase the Dream team. And I named everybody. And then I was so worried I'd forgotten somebody, but I hadn't. And then I looked out at the sea of people who did not want, I've been in the room when they do the bracelet ceremony, and it's a pain in the ass because you come back from break, you're ready to start playing again. You got to wait while they do this. So dumbass gets their bracelet and they're going to do the whole thing. And it was the gladiator. So it's just sea of people, all dreamers, right? And I looked out at them and I was like, Jack's not going to do the anthem. I was like, they don't want to hear the anthem, Jack. They want to get to playing. I didn't say Jack, but I was like, all of you out there sitting there right now in level 3 of the gladiator, wondering if you can do this, I'm proof that you can. And turns out that Day ran into like 5 people later the day that said that they were in the room when they heard that, and it mattered. Yeah. So that's awesome. That's the message.
Very cool. Mike Day wants to know, playing the tag team next year or defending your title?
I think we'll go with the same plan. We'll definitely play the freeze out, even though I'll be like, why am I playing this stupid tournament? But I will definitely be looking to if Day will have me as her partner again, because I didn't get a chance to even give her a bathroom break. We'll play the tag team, and if we're having to multi-table a tournament, then we'll multi-table tournaments.
And then I've got a pair of questions that are the same question, the one that you've been asked many, many times. Does this win change anything about your teaching career? Are you more interested in retirement? Does it speed up the timeline for it? Well, we have to back it up a little bit more. We have to have some consistency. If we can get,
if this can become not a bracelet necessarily, but if like winning poker tournaments outright and getting these larger scores becomes a little bit more regular, which I don't think it's whatever. There's a plan. It's just, we got to get everybody in the family on board with the plan. There's a lot of things to consider. Insurance, retirement plans. These things don't happen as a poker player. You are your own retirement plan. So we'll see.
And then I've got a question from Anonymous for Carlos. Wants to know what you've been up to this summer, and it's been 4 years since the last bracelet. When's the next one coming?
You know what? Won't be this year. maybe next year. I've been up to what I'm normally up to during the summer is playing the Landmark satellites and hanging out with Gloria. So Gloria and I have been playing those. She played deep stack yesterday in final tablet. So I've been enjoying, being on her rail and playing Landmark satellites. And unfortunately, they don't give bracelets for those, but maybe next year.
I love it. Craig, we're going to do things out of order a little bit. And we usually at the first podcast of the month, we do our Rec Poker scoreboard update at the very, very end, but we wanted to do it while you were here because you've contributed to this. So this, for those of you guys that don't know, we track all of our Rec Poker premium members' cashes and final tables and wins over the course of the year. And we have the updated numbers after Craig's bracelet win. Our premium members, not our entire community, just our premium members have cashed for almost $600,000 in 2025. And we had a absolutely ridiculous record month of $304,667 in June. By the way, Craig was only 238 of that. So there's still another $66,000, math is hard, that our Rec Poker premium members have contributed to this. And I was joking in the green room before that Craig has ruined this now because privately, me and Jim have been talking about a private goal for our premium members of hitting $1 million this year, which was insanely ambitious. And prior to Craig's win, we were going to miss that by a lot, probably. And now we're probably going to get really close, and it's going to sting if we don't get there. Like, I feel like we're going to be on like December 25th at $993,000. I'm going to be screaming to guys, we need 7K in the next 5 days.
You're next, Joe.
I did win a second place in a $5 buy-in for $300 this weekend. So
let's go.
But I did offer. I said if we're $20,000 short, I will put in the $20,000 to get us to $1 million. So long as Craig gives me $40,000, in return for that generous offer.
Is that how this new tax law is working?
Exactly.
Thanks,
Rob,
John.
go buy a North Carolina hat and prop bet this guy to play
exactly.
I
appreciate everybody hanging out. We're gonna do a giveaway here in just a little bit. Thank you for your patience. Obviously, we don't get to have a Wrecking crew member win a bracelet very often, so we're taking a little bit extra liberty. Rob Washam, I'm gonna call you. I'm not gonna call you Rec Poker Santa Claus. I'm gonna call you Rec Poker's Tom Cruise. You're looking great. You got these new eyes that you had surgery on, looking young. And tell us what they can win today.
Well, this week, we're giving away a free month of Rec.Poker Premium. But if you're already a premium member, you can receive a free month of premium from one of our learning partners. This week's Learning with Partners video is from Learn Pro Poker. Ryan LaPlante discusses out-of-position c-betting considerations and how equity buckets inform your c-betting frequency and c-bet sizes. So if you'd like more of this type of content, visit rec.poker/partners.
Awesome. Craig, Carlos, I super appreciate your time. Craig, I've got one last question for you, and we'll get you guys out of here.
If you ask me about a hot dog.
No, God, no. I'm in charge. There's no hot dog.
My favorite hand is pocket queens now, but okay.
No, I want to know what's next.
What's next is so this guy named Rob Gardner is flying to Dallas in a couple weeks, and he's going to be staying with me, and we're going to head up to Choctaw for the WSOP circuit. Brett and Day and Jay. Most of the Chase the Dream team will be missing Sean and Mika. But we're gonna rent a house up at Choctaw, and we're gonna play as many of the circuit events as we can. And then I don't know, Rob. I got to look forward in the schedule and see. We're gonna hit some run good stuff. There's the WPTs coming to Austin, to Texas, so that's gonna get down to the lodge and play some of those. But we have to spend some family time too. But we're gonna hit the road a little bit more this fall. We got some bankroll. We got to spend it. We're gonna spin it up. We got we got 2 wrists, so we're gonna go back to Vegas next year, try to get a bracelet. But got some fingers that need rings, so we'll get some circuit rings and some room on the mantle, so for more trophies. We'll get some global trophies up there. But we need some run good stuff.
Yeah, each buy-in is at a discount now, right, Craig? Because like every buy-in that you bust is like you get some tax money back. So
yeah, I need to write off some buys. No, I'd prefer. I mean, I'll write off the Airbnb and that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much to both of you for giving us your time. It's super generous. It's always a pleasure to obviously hang out with you, Craig, as one of my teammates and friends, and a guy who has been unwavering in his support for me. And I can't personally tell you how much I appreciate that. And I could not have been happier. Albeit I'd been up since 5 a.m. So I was like in bed, like holding my head up, looking at my phone, like just like, win it already, Craig, win it. Come on, man. It's like 3 a.m. here. I'm like barely awake. I've been awake for 24 hours, but no, seriously. Like, I had told you privately, like, I remember interviewing you 3.5, 4 years ago, however long ago. I think Sean said it was actually just 2 years ago. And you just talking about that main event run. And, you still had something inside. You wanted to know if you could make it. You wanted to know if you could do it. And I just remember I was like, you did it. This is it. Like there is no more questioning the ceiling of Craig. You may not know what it is, but you know what it's not. You've set the floor, and now it just goes up from there. So thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carlos, again for being here. Appreciate you both, and good luck to both of you for the rest of the summer and everything that's coming up.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll see you guys. We're going to take a few moments to do some rec poker. Wow, we're like way over in the left corner here. All right, we're going to take a few moments to do some rec poker business here. John Somsky, buddy, my friend, you want to hit us with some home game winners from the last week?
Absolutely. On July 2nd, we had our No Limit Hold'em Championship Series. This is a series where we have a game, or where we keep track of points for the entire year. And B Jones 999 won his or her first No Limit Hold'em series. JBT Twin Cities has retaken the lead in that event. And then on July 30th, the really Mad Guy got his 6th nightly victory for the year. LL Tahoe got his or her first nightly victory for the year. Stewie 13, Stuart Carriage, got his 5th nightly victory for the year. K-Poker Wannabe Ron Payton got his 7th nightly victory for the year. Bloop 7 got his first nightly victory for the year. Kel Brown 73 got his 2nd international victory for the year. And B Jones 999 got his first international victory for the year. And then to top it all off, Evil Roy CA David Westerveld got his 3rd LPP event, and he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Let's go. And we're going to pick a winner right now. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. If you don't see your name on the screen, double check, put it in the chat, type in Food Bank. It's a little crazy to do this and this at the same time. So if I missed you, I'll give you about 25 seconds to get this in here. I just want to say, my God, Jim Reed has some big shoes. It is a big challenge to host this podcast. Huge shout out to him. I hope he's having success out there and having a good time as well. We know that he is a guy that brings a lot of joy and fun to everybody that plays with him. We're going to pick a winner right now. Let's see who is our lucky winner for this week. And BC14, congratulations. You are our winner. You can send an email into info@rec.poker and we will get you taken care of. It's funny. I took the time to watch the old podcasts and make a transcript of Jim's intro because I wanted to make sure that I copied it as best I could. And I completely forgot there's an outro. So we're just going to completely riff this here and see if I could do this appropriately. I want to first shout out our official sponsors of the Rec Poker Podcast, Running Aces. You can again check them out at runningaces.com. Thank you so much for their support. Thank you to Craig Savage and Carlos Welch for their time of being on the podcast. All of our Wrecking Crew members that were on the panel here, Joe Kulas, John Somsky, Rob Washam, and Lorianne Persinger. And to all of you who support us, we appreciate you so much. Thank you, and we will see you next week.